Okay, get my notes. I want to first talk about the old homes that you just passed. You can't really tell how old they are. On the left, you passed a house that was built in 1907. And the people that own it now have destroyed it terribly and painted it green. It was our grandparents' house, and I'm going to pass two pictures to show you what it should have looked like. The Sinclair house is down on the left. It was built about 1910. The houses on the right were built in the early 1900s. The Silas Jones house is still standing in much better shape. It was built in 1905, and they've done a good job of keeping it set and historically preserved. There's only about 2 or 3 houses down there that are historically preserved correctly. But they tell me that if we could get our hands on some of those, we could put them back in their original state. I don't know how difficult or cost, that would take. But some of the current owners won't even discuss it with us. So both of those houses and all that land, if you went back down there on the right, it all belonged to the Jones family. It was all farmland. It was farmland all the way back to Oak Grove Road. And they farmed all those acres of land. So you've got a lot of historic homes in this community older than Hendersonville. This church was first organized in 1901, and the very first church on this property was built in 1910. The church has been renovated and extensions have been added in 1918, 1949, 1971, and the early 1990s. This part right here that you see coming out was a wood frame originally. It was bricked over in 49, 48. But that is the oldest part still standing. And I think they took the church bell from that and put it on the grounds of the church over there. This is now used as a fellowship hall, and they built a new sanctuary further down. The point I wanted to make here was that the Skyland Hosiery Company began the first textile mill in Henderson County in 1907, right here in East Flat Rock. Later, the name of the mill was changed to the Chipman Lacrosse Hosiery Mill. The mill owners began buying land from local farmers in this area, all up and down here. Back in that way was local farms. And from a man by the name of Perry Walker, who had bought Mitchell King's land in that section of East Flat Rock that we're going to go back to in a minute. And they began developing a mill town. And then they began building homes on what is called the Mill Hill. Well, the hill has been pretty much destroyed by DOT and developers and subdivisions. But was a hill, and houses actually sat on the hill. There was a huge hill back in here that they called the Mill Hill, where all these mill houses were. They've got a street, if you turn right next to the National Guard Armory, that today is called Mills Street. Big error by DOT. It should be Mill Street, no S on the end, because it was Mill Street. It was the main street that went through the Mill Village. We all together? So it went that way, it came back in behind the church here, and then it actually came out up near the mill. The mill is not there any longer, and I want to emphasize that this was Henderson County's first textile mill before the one in Green River. It was the first mill town in Henderson County before the one in Green River, and they were both way before any in Hendersonville. Okay? The mill closed in the late 1970s, and then sometime in the early 1980s or mid-1980s, even the outlet store they had here closed. After, originally the Western North Carolina Fair was located where East Henderson High School is now. So when they built East Henderson High School in 1960, they had to find another site.
Thank you.
So they put the fair back there, off Mill Street, on the big hill in the land, kind of across from Elk Mint, where Elk Mint is now. So that was the Western North Carolina Fairgrounds. Later, the Henderson County Board of Education bought it, thinking they were going to put a school there, but they found some chemical waste and dumped things that weren't good there. So now they're stuck with the property, and I don't think to this day they've sold that property yet. But they still own some deserted land back there that was part of the Western North Carolina Fairgrounds. Now Minuteman Anchors and Caisson Builders and Lewis Williams and Sons are located on the land where the hosiery mill was located. And there's nothing left of the mill. But this is what it looked like. You want to pass that around?
Jennie, was that powered by electricity by that time?
Yes, because Blue Ridge Power and Light had water-driven electricity on the Big Hungry River down here, and this was one of the first areas in all of Henderson County to get electricity, primarily coming up here for the mill. It was before the Green River Mill. We're going to just leave here, and I just want to stop here and give you that so you have a sense of where this factory was and where this mill village was. We're going to go right up here and turn right. And Gary King, was that your grandparents' house?
Yes.
They tore that one down.
Thurman and Fanny Potts.
Yeah, they were right there. And then there was another old house that's still standing that was the, she lived to be 108. Semiramis Mabry, the Mabry house, and she was the first cousin of another grandmother of mine. But her house is still up there, and I don't think they have destroyed it too much. It's still pretty old.
And actually right here where we're standing was the old Van Ward service station.
The Van Ward service station was
rock
here.
building, yeah, a little store.
Rock service station. And right over there was J.B. Case's car mechanic garage.
Right.
And that was one of the first tire companies that Spivens Jones opened way back before World War II, up here on the left.
And there was actually a little bit of a mill adjacent to Van Ward's store. Do you remember that? I mean, it was a one-story little knitting mill, I believe it was.
Yeah.
What did the mill produce during the war?
In the war, it went into socks and clothing for the soldiers. It was a hosiery mill that primarily produced socks and hosiery and things like that. And they would outsource work because a lot of local women in the community would work on a piece thing in their own homes on sewing machines, and they would produce so much. That was in the early days, and they would do piece work and then take it up to the mill and get money for it. We're gonna turn right, and we're gonna go through so you can see a couple of what some of these old mill houses look like. There's only one or two still standing. We're going to come next to the railroad tracks, and we're going to stop right there at East Flat Rock Post Office. You can park on the left and right, and we're going to talk about the town of East Flat Rock, which was incorporated way earlier than Laurel Park and Flat Rock.
Y'all see the row of apple trees? Those are all that's left of my granddad's apple orchard. The whole field was his apple orchard. Yeah. Thurman Potts. He was a railroadman. He was a brakeman on the Southern Railroad for 35 years. That's something? Yeah, they are.